Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Todd coming at you with another episode of Living Your Best Life. And of course, what we do on our show, we invite professionals on to talk about what they do and how what they do is contributing to a healthier society, a wealthier society, just a better society in general, right? And so we're out there, we're, locating these people that are out there in the trenches, helping people do just that, live their best lives. Today, we have an awesome lady on that's going to be talking to us about health, of course, today. And I want to preface it by this. She is a trooper, I will have to admit. Jennifer Uhlig out of Arizona, health coach. She's going to share with us tips and strategies on really how to overcome and deal with, you might be dealing with some current health issues, okay? How does she make sure that how do you make sure that you can get up each and every day and fight? Okay, there are tips and strategies on how to do that, okay? Or you can just wither away. We have these options, and that's the one thing I always talk about when it comes to life in general, that yes, bottom line, we have options, and each day you have an opportunity to either fight or you can just lay down. And so this health coach, Jennifer Uhlig, like I said, she's a fighter, and she has the spirit of a champ. And she's going to enlighten us and educate us on how to get back up, no matter what, okay? So, and I love a comeback story. She has an awesome comeback story and still fighting the fight, I will say. And so listen, you're going to enjoy the interview. But before we get on to the interview, of course, 50 years, if you are in that gray-haired society group of people, okay, and you have reached 50 and beyond, listen, there are 50 foods that I want you to download now that you should stop eating, okay? Download the link wherever it is. Download these 50 foods because we should stop eating them, or at least, at minimum, drastically reduce the consumption of these foods, right? So we can stay healthier, so we can stay as young as we can stay as long as we are 50 and beyond. So well beyond 50, everyone, is what we're talking about here. And also, I just want everybody to know, we have a challenge coming up, okay? June 3rd is the challenge. So I want you guys to find out what that's all about. So get in contact with me. This is the Jumpstart Weight Loss Challenge, and goes for 30 days. And people are having some awesome results from it. So like I said, please do reach out and get in contact with us. All right, so everyone, let's get on with the interview. But before that, short commercial break. All right, so see you on the other side. Peace. Hey, what's going on, everyone? So welcome back. Of course, as the commercial said, listen, 50 years or older, download that guide, 50 foods we should stop eating after the age of 50, right? So, as we move on to this awesome young lady, I have either to my right or to my left, however it looks coming across you right now. Life throws us different curves, all the time, and we have to deal with them. And I'm always inspired by, of course, you probably already know, I'm always inspired by a comeback story. And she has a comeback story. She has a story that, just listening to her over last week when I met her and listened to her situation, I was like, wow. But she has managed, everyone, to manage a lot of what she's been having to deal with in her life. And I'm not going to spoil everything. Introducing my next guest here, which is Jennifer Uhlig. And I just want to, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Is it Uhlig or Uhlig?
It's double O. You did really, really well.
All right, cool, cool. Look, alrighty. So, but like I said, I don't want to take away from her shine. I want her to introduce herself, but even more so when we get into the interview, I want her to definitely, I want you to listen to her journey, be inspired. Of course, what we do in our show, like I said in the intro, is we bring these individuals to the forefront. Okay, they're out there in the trenches helping people live their best lives. So if she resonates with you, definitely connect with her because this is what she does. Okay. So, Jennifer, I want to say welcome to the show today. And how are you doing?
I'm great, Todd. Thank you so much for having me this morning. Also, thank you for saying this young lady, because that always makes me feel good. Because sometimes you get to a certain age and you're just like, I don't know if I can be called a young lady anymore.
Well, you have just the ambience of young. So I'm going to just, have and share that right quick. So, but like I said, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I was really inspired, by your life's journey and through your challenges when it comes to your health and things like that. And so it just definitely, made me want to have you as a guest on the show because, like I said, people need to know that you exist, but people also need to know that we all have these challenges, whatever they might be, whether they might be health challenges, they might be financial challenges, they might be relationship challenges. We all have challenges that we have to deal with in life. And so you had a very inspirational story. I'm happy that you are definitely overcoming and managing things. Um, and so I want you to kind of like, give us some idea of who Jennifer is and where you are, because you're out in the sunny, hot space of, I think, Arizona, right?
Yeah, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I will say that I am Canadian born, so I'm originally from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And I think people laugh when I say all three because most people don't know where that is unless they're hockey fans. And so I always say that I come from Canada and I came to the United States in 2003. I moved to Houston for work. And so when I introduce myself, they're like, well, what did you do? And I'm like, well, I come from the background of education. I have a bachelor's of education, physical education and human sciences. So the human body to me has been something that I've always connected with and thought was fascinating. And we had the opportunity to come to Phoenix for my husband's job. He had worked for a NASA affiliate on the space shuttle. And when that got grounded, we had an option of where do we want to go. And he had gone to school up here. My parents had wintered up here as snowbirds. And we ended up getting married up here. So we were like, okay, well, we obviously like it here.
Mhm.
So here we are. We're in North Phoenix area in an area called Anthem. So people that are driving up to Flagstaff to the mountains kind of pass us by.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. So does it really, really get hot up there during the summer months? I mean, I've
It
heard.
does. It does. We can get 115, 120 in July and August. So we are very fortunate to have pool, which we
Hmm.
use all the time, even though it's kind of bathwater temperature by the time we hit summer. But it's nice to be able to cool down that way. Otherwise, you're inside with air conditioning on an awful lot.
Wow, wow, wow. And that had to have been a drastic change in terms of like from Canada to that area, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
coming from, so we went from dry Alberta to, I went to very humid Houston. And so that was like the biggest change first was to get rid, like into the humidity, because that was so different. And I have
yeah.
naturally curly hair from my father's side. So adjusting to the fact
Mm,
that my hair didn't ever want to behave,
yeah.
it's like it was so different. But then coming back to Phoenix, we went back to dry. So I at least had some time to kind of get used to heat in Houston.
Hmm.
And so it wasn't such a huge transition for me, but by the time, like during the health struggles that will kind of break down, heat's become a different issue. I think,
Mm,
you get through a certain thing and your body reacts differently, especially when you go through menopause, heat becomes a whole different ballgame.
wow. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And wow. So, you are the founder of Grounded Wellness Coaching. And tell us a little bit about what Grounded Wellness Coaching is to the audience.
So, like I said, I have a bachelor's of education, but I'm also a health and nutrition coach and a life coach because I do feel that when you talk about health and nutrition, you also have to talk about lifestyle and the emotional aspect of it because there's so much more that goes into that. So when I really transitioned was through COVID, like a lot of people that were in the fitness and wellness space. I was, studios were shut down. I wasn't seeing clientele anymore, and I had to think about how am I going to be serving people from this point on. So I kind of went down this research spiral and knew that coming into this space as a health and nutrition coach was where I really had a passion. And I was just at that point in 2019, I did have a full hysterectomy, which
Hmm.
is part of my transition story. And then in 2020, I had my breast implants moved because I did have breast implant illness. So during that, you go through two major surgeries and your body is transitioning. And at the same time, you're trying to transition your business, but you learn so much. And I think you can develop these deep, deep passions for helping people because you know what
Hmm.
you've been through. And
Hmm.
a part of my story is I started having health issues when I was 13, when you retrospectively look back.
Hmm. Hmm.
But my main health issues really started around 32. And that's when I had one weekend where over 3 days I put on 10 pounds and it was very, very scary. As you can imagine, you get into this place where you look at yourself in the mirror and you know yourself a certain way, and then all of a sudden you're just like, oh my gosh, like, do I need to go to the hospital? Am I having an allergic reaction? So I went down the route of allergies first, just to make sure we ruled it out. I went to an allergist, got all the prick tests, and I kind of
Hmm.
talked about this with you before. It's for those who've never had a prick test, they literally do hundreds of needles with different pollens and animals and foods on your body. And so they did my whole back and they did both sides of my arms. And normally you go in and they wait for 20 minutes to see if you have a reaction. My tech came in after 5 minutes, 10 minutes to just check on me, and they literally wiped everything off right away after they kind of recorded things and gave me a Benadryl because it was that aggressive.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is that anything um that you're kind of born with? Is that like to be allergic to so many things?
It's very funny because I wasn't.
Hmm.
And I think what was going on inside of my body at the time was the beginning of all of this autoimmune stuff that I now have kind of gone through the journey of developing
Yeah.
and healing from. So I was born, and the only thing I had to deal with was my mom said I was lactose intolerant even as a baby.
Hmm.
So growing up, I didn't have any other allergies, besides the fact that dairy and I were just not friends.
Hmm. Hmm.
you know. But over time, I noticed that more things and more things were bothering me. So I would eat certain things and I wouldn't feel quite right, or I would get congested, or I would sneeze, and then I would start getting these hives, which I wasn't used to.
What foods were bringing these kinds of things? Because we know that the dairy stuff, was kind of like that lactose stuff. So
Yeah.
what other foods were kind of like giving you some other issues?
So my main triggers, which I think for a lot of people, these are the things that we explore first because of just the way that our food system is at this point, is I got diagnosed with celiacs. And I think
Hmm.
that was one of my first diagnoses with celiacs. And that whole testing process is a blood draw for people that aren't
Hmm.
familiar with it. And you have to eat gluten prior to that blood draw to see if
Hmm.
you're actually in the like an allergic reaction or you have that condition.
Hmm.
So there's a difference between being celiac and being gluten sensitive, the way that your
Hmm.
body responds. Most people that are gluten sensitive may have just general tummy issues and, feel like lethargic or maybe some swelling. When you're celiac, it gets a little bit more impactful when you
Okay.
so gluten was definitely one. I couldn't actually get through the 3 days prior to the test because I couldn't move after day two because the
How
swelling
much?
and the inflammation. Yeah, I could not. Day two, I could not get out of bed. The inflammation was so high and I was in so much pain. I had to call my doctor and she's like, well, we're still going to do the test, but don't eat it again for another day. It's like if you're in that much
Yeah.
pain.
How much gluten did you have? I mean, because I mean, is there an overload? Is there no matter how much, your body just goes, hey,
For me personally, where I am on the celiac spectrum, I can have a little and I can manage. I won't say
okay,
I'm okay because that's not the truth. I don't want to give
yeah,
anybody this idea that,
yeah,
oh, she's
exactly.
not really celiac. I'm like, no. So what I was doing at that time is I was having gluten-based grain.
Hmm.
So I wasn't having highly processed foods or anything like that that had gluten in it. It was specifically like having oats or having
Mm,
um, toast or something of that nature, where you're having wheat or barley or something like that. And it was like I would have a piece of bread or I would have a cup of oatmeal or something like that. And that was my gluten for the day.
gotcha.
So I wasn't like down on a pizza or eating a bunch of
Right,
hamburger buns.
right, right, right,
You
right.
know, it was still smaller doses, but my body
Gotcha.
reacted so violent to it. You know, that
Now,
that's when it started.
can you move from being gluten sensitive to celiacs, or that doesn't
I
really happen? You know?
No, I think for a lot of people, your body, I think you can develop allergies as you go through stuff and your body becomes more sensitive to it.
Mhm.
But for most people, kind of the way the studies and the science is going, people that are gluten sensitive, a lot of the times now, it's mostly because of a chemical reaction to what's being sprayed on the grain
Mm,
versus the people that are celiac that are truly reacting to the gluten molecule that's
mhm.
inside of it. So it's interesting as studies come out because obviously we need time for studies to do their
Yeah.
magic and be tested. But most people that are gluten sensitive, there are just more and more studies are coming out about it being more the glycophosphates that are being sprayed on the grape on the our crops that are getting into us and causing us to have these more allergic reaction type of signals. But for someone like me that's actually in the celiac spectrum, it's not going to matter whether that grain is non-GMO, organic, sustainably farmed. All of those things are things obviously we would look for,
Mhm.
but it's still going to react in my body. I'm still going to get, swelling, hives. I get things called like kind of hot patches where parts of my skin will get red, like a
Mhm.
sunburn. My joints will hurt. And then my personal body, and this is not necessarily something that's common, but with your muscle fibers and as you train, you know that they're kind of
Mhm.
interconnected. Mine like to get really, really friendly, and then they like to fuse to each other. So that's where a lot of my pain comes from. It's not just the inflammation in the joint, but my connective tissue and my muscle tissue kind of gets hard. And so I have to go through the process of scraping and lymph draining out to get the
Mhm.
muscle tissue to open back up so it becomes more comfortable for me. So rather than going through the painful process of that, I'd rather just not eat the gluten to start with.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Wow. This is a masterclass, I tell you, with regards to learning about gluten and the impact or the effects that it has. Because I have a client that deals with celiac, issues, but she manages it pretty well. And I guess that's really what it comes down to is once you understand this is what you have and this is what you should stay away from, then you stay away from, like you say, those particular types of gluten products. But the fact that, what you say kind of caught me, with regards to people that are gluten sensitive, they're pretty much probably sensitive to some of the chemicals that they're more so spraying. And that has always been an issue with me with regards to food care or produce care in this country. And not to make it a us versus them kind of thing, is there a difference in terms of food care or produce care that happens in Canada versus here? Is one better than the other, or are they pretty much kind of the same?
There is a difference. So because of the way our system is set up and the consumerism part of it, and the way that our society is, we don't have the same regulations on the food system in the United States that other countries do.
Right.
Same thing with beauty care and things like that. We have different things that we allow or disallow. So even when I moved, I can like say specifically when I moved, I had my parents send me care boxes because I didn't understand the food in Houston. Like I was having a massive culture shock. And I think a
Mm,
lot of people are like, oh, you're just coming from Canada. I'm like, but if you read the back of a, container of one of the things was Kraft macaroni and cheese,
hmm.
right? And we call it Kraft dinner in Canada, which was
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
I'm coming out of college and it's not like I have a ton of money to get good meats and produce yet.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, you look at the back of the ingredients and they're very, very different. And
Wow.
so you look and you're saying what's allowed and what's not allowed. So there is a different way of what's regulated and what's not regulated. And another thing that a lot of people understand usually better is some people, are gluten sensitive here in the United States, but they can eat bread in Europe.
The weirdest thing. I've heard about that one. I've heard about that one.
And that comes back to the study about the chemicals and the way that it's an ancient grain. Like it's been there forever. It hasn't, been modified or anything like that. And people can digest that okay.
Well,
So yeah,
go ahead.
it's
I'm
a
sorry.
very,
Yeah. Yeah. Go
sorry,
ahead.
I
I'm
missed.
sorry.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I said it's very interesting because when you compare the two, like there's certain things that I would be able to eat back home when I'm visiting my family that I wouldn't necessarily eat here.
Hmm.
And I also say, like, for me here, is we don't have, depending where you are in the country, you don't necessarily have that farmer connection.
Mm,
And I was very, very fortunate when I was growing up. We were in Cowtown. Alberta is
hmm.
definitely meat, beef, and
Hmm.
dairy province next to our oil industry. But you would go down and drive down the street. I'm going to say it in kilometers, like 5 kilometers, because it's different. We'll
Yeah.
translate about 2.5 miles.
Okay. Thank you.
But you'd be at a dairy farm,
Yeah.
right? And then in the summer, you would eat seasonally because everything would come off of people's gardens or farms. You would go to the farmer's market and you would have access to produce that was literally picked the day before.
Yeah.
So I think when it came to the food system adjustment, that was part of the thing too. I was being exposed to different things that my body wasn't used to.
Wow. 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 That's hard one. That's a hard pill to swallow, in the sense that coming from where you came from, and knowing like you said, the regulations were set and they're different. And I see this all the time. I've heard it all, also. I didn't know that just a border away, things were that much more different. Okay, I could get it, across seas somewhere in Europe where there's a difference in regulation, but a border, just a rock's throw into in some cases, that regulations are that different. Um, but now if we move forward, you've also had to deal with, like you say, autoimmune issues. And
Mhm.
that's another, I think, mystery to me when it comes to health issues that we have to deal with. And I want everyone to kind of understand from someone who's had to deal with it, what is autoimmune? If you can share that.
Absolutely. And I think before I kind of get into what is autoimmune, I'd like people to understand all the things that I've been diagnosed with
Yeah, please
prior
do.
to that so they can understand where I'm at now. So I said that, I went to the allergist and I dealt with that, but then I started down this path with a homeopath. I was very fortunate to have a local doctor that was going to be in it for the long haul with me. Because a lot of times you're trying something out and then you fix it and then you have something else that pops up, right? And you're constantly looking for the root cause. So I have been diagnosed with not just celiacs, but Hashimoto's, Candida. I had PCOS, so polycystic ovary syndrome, fibroids, massive endometriosis. I have SIBO currently, so I have hydrogen SIBO, and I'm histamine intolerant, which basically means that my body right now, depending on the day and how salty she wants to be, decides that that food she doesn't like it, and then I
Mm,
will have a allergic response. Now, mine is generally on the skin and a little bit of swelling. Thankfully, I'm not having to use an EpiPen or anything of that.
mhm, mhm.
So those are all things that are in the autoimmune chronic illness category.
Wow.
And what autoimmunity is your body's natural immune system, which consists of platelets, red blood cells, white blood cells, and plasma. is you eat something or you put something on your skin or you inhale something and it basically identifies it as foreign. And your natural body's reaction is to send those white blood cells in to take care of the foreign identity so you don't get sick,
Hmm.
right? That's like the simple broken down thing. Well, my body through all of this has decided that all of these things are now foreign invaders and it's now started to attack its own cells. So I could have certain parts of my body where nothing's going on and my white blood cells are being sent there to heal something, but essentially they're breaking down cells inside of my body that would be otherwise healthy. So a lot of people with autoimmunity can experience a lot of chronic fatigue, and that's probably one of the first symptoms I ever look for with my clients when they said I'm really tired. You
Hmm.
know, we hear that all the time, I'm really tired. You know, I'm
Hmm.
always tired. And so you have to look at it from different things. I'm like, okay, is it just a food issue? Are you not eating enough? Are you, overworking yourselves? Or is it something going on in your environment? Is it something that, is just stress related because we're constantly in this do more, do more, do more hustle culture,
Hmm.
which for me, hustle culture is like this four-letter word in my vocabulary. I just don't subscribe to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's this beautiful thing in rest and simplicity that we have a tendency to miss out on.
True.
But the autoimmunity part of it is just that your body is generally attacking itself. So you get chronic fatigue, you get a lot of pain, depending on what autoimmune condition you have. And it can be very isolating. I think a lot of people, when you talk about chronic illness, and we usually can refer to it as invisible illness because you don't always see it. So I can show up for you today, and today for me is, a good day because I knew to rest yesterday, so I had energy today for this.
Hmm.
But I can show up today and you would not think, at least I hope you don't think, that I have an invisible illness because you can't see it, right? It's not like
Can't
I'm in
see it.
a
Yeah.
wheelchair. It's not like I, have lost my hair. It's not like I have
Right.
any symptoms that people are used to seeing and understand. So again, it can be really isolating because people have a tendency to pull away because they have to recoup a lot more energy than they're used to.
Now, when you say chronic fatigue on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst, what does that fatigue look like? I mean, is it like I can't move today, or, I'm just, I just it's like just being lazy around the house today?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think, okay, I'm just going to slow down today. It's very, very
Hmm.
different than that. It's actually really internal fatigue. The best way I can describe it to a lot of people is, when you have like a really long walk or you have a really busy workout and you kind of feel a little tired and lethargic after that? That's not what I'm talking about when I talk about chronic fatigue.
Gotcha.
So chronic fatigue is literally where your nutrients are not getting to your muscles and your tissues to help you recover fast enough. So you don't have the fuel that your body needs in order to do the daily things that you want to do.
Hmm.
So if I'm having a big flare, my fatigue can be at a 9 or 10. And that could mean that my big way that I'm going to spend my energy is making sure that I get food into my system and walking from like my bed to the bathroom to the couch.
Mm.
That would be all of the energy I have for that day. And that's the
That day?
that day. And sometimes when you're in a flare, that can last a week, 2 weeks, a month, depending on what your system's going through. Now, I'm at the part of my journey where I can usually cut that down to a couple of days because I know how to do that now.
Hmm.
At the beginning, I spent 2 months after my first treatment session with my homeopath, where I basically worked with my laptop on the couch
Hmm.
because sitting in this chair would have been too much energy for me. I wouldn't have had it. Like I would have been sitting here and I would have been like head down or
Serious?
slumping in the chair because I wouldn't be able to have the energy to keep myself upright.
And it's not a sleepy tired. It's just no
No,
energy.
yeah, it's that internal energy. Like it's you're not absorbing the food the way that you would normally, so you go into this malabsorption, you're not getting the vitamins and the minerals from the food because of what's happening in your system.
Mhm.
And so, I'm just not getting the energy to start off with.
Right.
And I think a lot
Gotcha.
of time. people understand it better when you talk about now, culture instead of, we call it spoonies, is kind of like the term that a lot of people with chronic illness, we call it
Mm-hmm.
spoons, and they represent how many spoons an activity is going to take you to do. But I think now people understand it better in terms of a phone battery. So
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like you plugged in your phone the night before, and then
Mm-hmm.
you woke up and it was only charged 10%.
Oh, yeah, that's disappointing.
Yeah, so it's that same feeling, right? Like that reaction is
Yeah,
what people are
yeah,
like, yeah, you're just like, oh man, like my phone's not charged. What am I gonna
yeah,
do? Like, I'm gonna have
yeah.
to plug it in here. And that can be what chronic illness and autoimmune is for people, right? You just don't wake up with a full battery some days. And for some people, they may never wake up with a full battery again because of what their system is going through.
Goodness. This is like I said, this is a master class today. And I cannot thank you enough for just being so open, with your journey. Because I had no idea. I had no idea. And so now you said that you had like hysterectomy surgery. Now,
Yes.
with those types of traumas, surgical traumas, does that lend to or take away from your overall cellular life and uh, overall everything?
I guess it depends on what the surgery is for. Now, for me, being that I had the full hysterectomy, and for people that may not be familiar, there's a partial and there's a full. So I
Hmm.
actually had my ovaries removed. I had everything, like all seven, the whole female reproductive system
Wow, wow,
gone.
yeah.
And it took me 7 years working with the right doctor and finding the right surgeon to get that accomplished in within my insurance.
Hmm.
And so that's a whole other, probably a whole other podcast on medical
Yeah.
gaslighting. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole. I do want to say for people that are watching, I know a lot of great doctors that would never have that problem with, but I know there's a lot of people in this community, the chronic illness, autoimmune community, that's one of the things they experience on the regular is medical gaslighting. But I'll set that
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the
gotcha.
side. But it took me 7 years to get to the point where insurance was going to cover the surgery. And I got a fabulous surgeon here. And within 5 minutes of being in her office, she's like, this is ridiculous. She had me on the schedule in 2 weeks. And I went in and had the surgery, and I was so excited. And I know a lot of people go into surgery and they're scared, but
Mm,
I
yeah,
knew when I came out of that, even though the recovery was going to be, painful, and it was going to be a good 6 to 8 weeks before I could do any physical activity again, I knew my life, my quality of life was going to be better in a couple months.
gotcha.
Because what I was experiencing with that is that for 2 weeks out of every month, the pain that I was experiencing in my abdomen was similar to that. They call it like it's the same as having a heart attack. And I was having that every month for 2 weeks.
Mm,
And what we found out in the surgery is from hip to hip, I had a webbing of endometriosis that was wrapping around behind my uterus and in the organs and behind. So it was basically like a little vice clamp
mm, mm,
pushing down on me. And so for me, the surgery was for sure a quality of life change. But at
hmm.
the same time, you go into medical menopause. And so
Yeah.
you're dealing with a whole other loss of
Yeah,
hormones,
yeah,
right? And that's more than the physical recovery part of it. You then have to navigate what that means to you. Whether or not you're
right.
going to place in therapy or not. Again, that's a very personal decision for a lot of people. And I
Mhm.
mean, a big topic of conversation, of course, for menopause,
Yeah, and we just, I don't mean to cut you off, but we just had a conversation, and that is with a doctor not too long ago, um, that works with women with regards to menopause and things like that, because the hormone replacement thing is kind of a topic that's becoming more popular now, and more
very,
people are. I don't know if it's yet a good thing or a bad thing. Do you have any opinions on HTR or HRT?
yeah, HRT, I think, is very personalized. And I
Gotcha.
think we hear these things through social media and influencer stuff that are like, no, you got to do it this way, or no, you got to do it this way. And we're losing the nuance of it.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things is to really have a good communication with your doctor and
Gotcha.
have somebody that understands hormone replacement therapy. Now, I had done HRT prior to my hysterectomy.
Hmm.
So I knew how my body reacted. I knew how my body reacted to birth control. I had tried every birth control growing up and everything to help with all these symptoms. I had been on progesterone and all of those things. But so I knew after my surgery, knowing how my body reacted to HRT, that it wasn't something that I was going to pursue.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is I had seen family members and things go through it and seen the ups and downs with that. And I knew for me, I just wanted to get my body to whatever its new baseline was going to be as quickly as possible and then go
Gotcha.
from it. So it really is having that communication with your doctor. I think a lot of times there's so much noise out there and
Yeah. Yeah.
the old studies that used to talk about HRT, affecting osteoporosis and things like that have been reviewed again. And I don't think we have anything conclusive at this point where we can really just say this is the direction to go. So I really would say to anybody that's considering it is it has to be something that you choose and that's right for you. And don't be afraid to change your mind if it's not working either way.
Wow. Wow. That's, then did that, I don't know which one comes first. PCOS, I always call it PCOS because I always get those letters mixed up. So I call it, I would say PCOS. So did PCOS come first or did PCOS come after, or was it always there?
So that's an interesting story. I was, again, coming back to medical gaslighting. So this started when I
Yeah.
was 13.
Oh, wow.
And so I got my first menstrual cycle when I was in seventh grade.
Hmm.
I remember it vividly because I was sitting in social studies class and all of
Hmm.
a sudden this just dramatic shooting pain.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And I remember sitting down on the floor in that classroom, curled up in a ball, and having my
Mm.
teacher just telling me, whatever, suck it up, you're fine, you're making it up. I get home that night, and my mom is like, oh, okay, you're getting your menstrual cycle, we're going to do these things. Ended up going to the doctor, making sure got things checked out.
Mm.
I didn't get an ultrasound until my 20s.
Wow. So all that time.
So all of this time, I was having this endometriosis pain where things were hurting and it was growing, constantly getting worse. But then I would have also instances where I would have a vagal response, and there's this big vein that connects your lower digestive system to your brain. And I was having a vagal response when I would have a cyst burst. So the cyst would
Mm.
be when, your egg comes out of your ovary and it ends up on the outside of your ovary and then it pops.
Mm.
And so I would have those moments and I couldn't ever connect the dots. Like we weren't connecting the dots. We weren't connecting the dots. And again, it came back to when I came and found my medical team here. And I can't stress this enough for anyone going through this. Finding the right people in your corner is the game changer. Like you want people that aren't going to quit on you,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And so my doctor here, she's like, I can't believe you haven't had an ultrasound. No MRIs, no ultrasounds, just the basic pap swaps that everybody gets. And she sent me in. I got an ultrasound, and I can't remember the number. I was over 5 cysts that they found in the first one. And so I've probably had PCOS since I was 13 and not known it.
Did you gain weight with your PCOS?
I will say I did not until I
Interesting.
was in my 30s. And I think the reason was because I was an athlete.
Okay.
And and I was at a certain level where I was practicing for 2 to 3 hours a day. And I think that would have combat what was happening with the hormones. Plus, I was
Mhm.
on birth control.
Okay.
I think the
Okay.
combination of the two kept my weight in check for a good chunk of time. And I
Okay.
didn't really see it in my 30s until the hormones started to shift.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, we've talked about a lot about some of the struggles and the challenges and the problems. Um,
Mhm.
let's talk about some solutions,
Yeah.
because um, because I mean, this has to be a stressful journey and challenge, in all these areas. Do you use any kind of like, practices such as meditation? What do you do to keep balanced and sane?
Well, that's questionable, right? Depends on,
Yeah, exactly.
right? I think like my big thing right now is once you get to know your body, it's the
Mhm,
consistency of giving your body what it needs. And going through this process and healing, understanding that my body wasn't going to function the same way that I was used to. I was not going to be at the same level of activity. I was not going to have the energy to do what I was wanting to do. That's probably the biggest shift. So now I
mhm,
know what activities feel good for me, and that's what I stick to. So things that I do for stress relief, things that I do to maintain my muscle mass, which is a massive thing, I think, for people with chronic illness, is that we can see a lot of atrophy in our muscles because we don't have the energy to lift heavy things
mhm,
all the
mhm,
time, right? And I like to lift heavy. I really
mhm,
like being strong. So for me, I had to stop playing beach volleyball. I had played
mhm.
volleyball all the way up through school, coached for 16 years, like just
Wow.
it's my sport. And
Yeah.
because I couldn't absorb the impact anymore, I had to walk away from certain things. I was also in Krav Maga. I liked martial arts. I had to step back from that. And so I lost a lot of my stress relief outlets at that point.
Hmm.
And one of the big things is to manage stress.
Yeah.
So you have to find ways to do it. I will say for a lot of people, like the wellness culture always goes to a few couple things, right? It's always journaling, meditation, and yoga. Like those three things are going to heal the world, right?
Yeah.
And they're all wonderful things, but they may not be your things. And I
True.
think that's something, you got to understand. So for me, I really like to ride a bike. Like I like to be on my cycle, my, stationary bike. I won't
Hmm.
drop names of which one I use now, but
Hmm.
but I like to ride my bike. And because it's low impact, I can get a good chunk of miles in
Hmm.
and still make sure that I'm getting that energy and the blood flow through my system, which really helps with your inflammation. Like when you can get the lymph fluid moving through your body, it can make a huge difference. And that's why
Hmm.
people have tendency to go to yoga because it's gentle and it moves the fluid through your body.
Hmm.
For me, walking was a huge thing. I wasn't a huge, big walker before this. Like it wasn't something I'm like, oh, I'll go for a walk. I wasn't
Yeah.
the person that had the pedometer trying to get the steps. Now I go for a walk after meals, or I try to move after meals because that helps with what I have going on in digestion. And generally, for most people, if you can move for 10, 15 minutes after a meal, your stomach's going to feel better just because
Yeah.
it helps keep the stomach acid going.
Yeah.
I like to lift weights. In terms of stress relief for me, I guess that's probably where I get my grounding from grounded wellness coaching, is that I really connect with outside.
Okay.
And not everybody does, and that's okay. You want to know what's
Mhm.
what's what's authentic to you. But if I need to reset, I need to be out in the sunshine. I need to go hear water. I want to go
Mhm.
have a bonfire. Or even when it gets really, really bad, or if I'm really starting to feel my body like disconnected, I always say I need to go see some trees.
Gotcha.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're in the desert,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
green, but it's green in a different way. Like I want to go into the classic grassy meadow kind of situation. I want to put my feet in the dirt. I want to lay down in the grass and just like look up at the trees. And
Yeah.
so for me, that's where I can really feel connected again when my body may be doing whatever it's doing. And that also helps me heal.
Hmm.
Because when we can resync our bodies up with their natural rhythms, things work better. And when we
Yes.
get so far disconnected, right, that's when we have our struggles. So you really like it's so much about self-actualization and understanding what you are,
Hmm.
right? Yoga may be your thing. Journaling
Yeah.
may be your thing. I'm not a writer. I
Yeah.
don't like
Me
the
either.
action of writer. I'm also not a great meditator. My version of meditation is the bike ride, or I will sit my husband thinks this is hilarious, but I have a bench in my shower
Hmm.
And I will just sit there and close my eyes and let the water run over me. Like that's my meditation. It's I'm not sitting here trying to clear my mind, you know, but and I'm yoga trained. I know how to meditate. I know the breathing techniques. Like I use them with people if that's what resonates with them. But for me, I will sit there and I'll breathe before I go to bed. Like I have a routine before bed where I put one hand on my heart and one on my lower abdomen, and I make sure that I'm breathing in and out properly just to
Mhm.
get my diaphragm to relax. And it also helps me kind of get the muscle system to kind of wind down and get into that parasympathetic
Right.
kind of
Wow.
mode.
Any idea how many steps you do you have, like, and I don't want to clock things because
Yeah,
sometimes we just have to just without clocking everything and just because we've become that kind of society too. We have to get 5,000 or 10,000
right.
steps in, blah blah blah. There we go. Here we have it. But do
Right.
you use that type of a when you do walk or
So I have gotten to the point now where I do try to hit a goal every day.
okay.
And I want to like read it. It's not because I want to burn a certain amount of calories. It's because I want to make sure that I'm moving enough so my body can get stuff through.
Hmm.
And so I, in general, we walk after dinner. It's become our,
Hmm.
our connection time, which is another big thing when you have autoimmune, you lose community connection because you're
Hmm.
not always being able to go out. Like I have to plan to go have lunch with somebody. I have to plan to go hang out with my
Yeah.
friends or have that energy to make sure I do stuff, that I don't expend too much before that. So for me, like I know that my step goal is not 10,000 steps. Like the
Hmm.
standard, if someone
Yeah.
just arbitrarily came up with this number, as I'm sure you kind of know the
Yeah.
history about it, right? It's like, okay, how do we get people to do this? My step goal is only 6,500 steps a day.
Okay.
And that's
Okay.
around 3 months.
Hmm.
And it's not about how fast I go. It's not about any of that. It's that I'm out there physically doing it. And I don't necessarily do it all in one go. So I,
Hmm.
will make sure I'm walking around during the day, doing small little things around the house. I have a tendency to take 15-minute breaks to make sure that I'm not sitting for too long, like go and do a chore around the house or do some dishes or things
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
that would technically be stress because I am a firm believer that our environment plays a huge role.
Of
And
course,
it's
yeah.
something, yeah, it's something that I build into my programs too, is to understand what your environment is also affecting what your body is doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, that's where it is. I did not start at 6,500 steps. I started at 2,000.
Wow. Yeah.
When I was just getting going, that was hard for me. The energy wasn't there. I had to build up that endurance again,
Hmm.
right? Like it's just understanding what your body is because some people, the idea of walking 10,000 steps is overwhelming and they're going to shut
Hmm.
down because of that. So it's understanding you have to have a starting point.
Hmm.
You do that for a couple days or a week, and then you reevaluate and you think, okay, am I pushing myself to a point of comfort exercise or am I, overdoing it? And then finding
Hmm.
where that sweet spot is and knowing that there's a point where your body is going to build up its endurance again, and then you're going to be able to add a little bit more.
Yeah.
And the thing too is like we go and I'm like, we're not fast walking. We're going to have that connection, and that's where we
Hmm.
decompress from our day.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have no distractions from technology. We're not sitting in front of like the computer or the screen. Is just we're talking about our day. And that's another
Hmm.
thing that is really important is to make sure that you have someone to talk to,
Hmm.
whether it be family, friends, or whoever is in that inner circle, where you can just break things down. Because if you hold on to things, that affects the way our body is processing too,
True. True.
right? A lot of people are just like, if you had a really like, crappy day, holding it in and not talking about it can actually make it worse. So even like
Right.
you don't want to feel like a burden, which is something I think a lot of chronic illness people have, they feel like a burden. And I do all the time. Like I'm
Hmm.
not going to say that goes away. Like there are days where you just like you need help. And
Hmm.
I think when you're stubborn like me, asking for help is the hardest part.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, coming back, like circling back to the step thing is like, yeah, I'm only at 6,500 steps. And right now I'm just now, after about 5 months, I think we started in like November. So yeah, around 5, 6 months, I am just now getting that where we are, like we've this month, it's the 29th, and we've walked 26 days this month.
Wow.
And I did
Okay.
those steps. That's a huge milestone for me.
Well, congratulations, and and because everyone's step uh uh system doesn't have to look like everyone else's. And so like I said, congratulations. Now, who are you serving? Who is your ideal people that you love to work with, if you don't mind sharing that as we come to a close here?
I would love to. I really have been honing down on my fellow autoimmune warriors.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether you are diagnosed and understand like working through a diagnosis or you're still looking for a diagnosis, those are my people. I want to make sure that my 7 year journey doesn't turn into your 7 year journey.
Mm-hmm.
I want to help you know how to get through the healing process in a shorter period of time because it can be so overwhelming with the information. And often my people, they go in, they get a diagnosis if they're lucky, or they're still trying to figure it out, and they walk out with a prescription and that's it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the big disconnect in the healing. So I have two main programs, but my signature program is my root cause reset. And
Mm-hmm.
we work to kind of identify, and I have four main pillars that we work through. And the first thing is we get you started on a specific elimination protocol depending on what your symptoms are.
Mm-hmm.
Not just a general one. We're not going to put you on a diet. We're going to figure out what is it that we need to pull out to let your body breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to very systematically reintroduce things to figure out what your body's reacting to. And that's where
Yeah.
people generally, miss the mark, is that they
Yeah.
throw everything back in and they start feeling crappy again.
Yeah.
But while we're letting your body rest for that first 4 weeks, we're also dealing with everything around you,
Mm-hmm.
everything in your physical environment.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about, understanding what's in your pantry and your fridge, of course,
Mm-hmm.
what those labels mean, how to read them,
Mm-hmm.
or, avoid them,
Mm-hmm.
preferably anything with the label. I know that's harsh, but it is helpful.
Yeah.
Um, what kind of things are you using to clean your house? What kind of things are you using air fresheners or things like that that would be in this bucket of endocrine disrupting chemicals that could be slowing down your healing process?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to take anything that's making your body work harder, and if we can remove it from your daily routine, it's just going to help speed up your recovery. So we
Wow.
do that first while you're kind of doing the elimination protocol. Then we start your reintroduction phase. We kind of break it down. Then the third phase is to really deal with the mental and emotional healing process.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a grieving process that people
Mm-hmm.
don't always identify with when you've been dealing with a chronic illness because your body is just not the same.
Yeah.
Right? You're losing, you could lose friends, you could lose jobs. I mean, there's so many things that you're losing your capacity to move sometimes.
Yeah.
And to understand how to manage those emotions, how to reframe and readdress what's going on in your lifestyle so that you still have this beautiful, abundant, healthy life,
Yeah.
is a big part of the process. And then, again, figuring out what movement works for you, because sitting down, if you are physically challenged at that point or physically disabled, you still finding a way to move your body, whether it's with a mobility aid or if it's just sitting on the couch and you're doing chair stretches, or if it's like whatever it is for you. It's finding what this mindful movement concept is,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that you're moving, but at the same time you're enjoying it, because as soon as you stop enjoying it, you stop doing
Yeah. Of course. Of course.
it.
Wow. I am so impressed with you, Jennifer. I am really impressed with you, and congratulations on discovering what you have discovered about yourself and how to get to the root cause of your problems. And the fact that you're out here helping people find out how to get to the root, cause of their problems is awesome. So keep doing the work. How can people find you out here in this jungle of internet space and all of that stuff?
Right. right? So all of my stuff is all under grounded wellness coaching because I can't have too many different names or I'll forget them myself. But um, if you're just looking for connection into like some nutrition information and things like that, you can always follow me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, but it doesn't always necessarily transfer the same way. So I do prefer Instagram for the video concept of it. I do have a website landing page, which is groundedwellnesscoaching.com. And that's a place where people can subscribe to my newsletter, which is called Planting Seeds, which I send out once a month and just give
Hmm.
some food for thought.
Gotcha.
Things to think about, whatever is going on, what is in the world of news that we're hearing today, what may be a hot topic. Last month we were talking about Ozempic and cold plunging
Oh yeah,
and a couple
yeah,
of those things and just giving some real information, and letting people, like, the big thing is to not get pulled into this misinformation that is out
yeah,
there. Try to
yeah.
really like break it down. Also on there, I always say, like, if you want to have one-on-one coaching with me, like, my whole thing is I want you to understand that we're here to see you and hear you. And a lot of times people forget that, it's always we listen to then talk and talk about it. We want to find a solution, but sometimes the biggest thing is to listen to hear someone's story and help them feel seen, and then figure out how we can help them feel better. So I have a link on there on my website for you to book a one-on-one appointment with me. I offer a 30-minute free call. I want to see if we're a right fit,
Hmm.
and I want to make sure that even if we're not, you leave that 30-minute call with a piece of information you can implement into your daily life right away. And then some people, if that's not where their next step is, I do have monthly recipe packs and meal plans for people, and just generally to get their foot in the door. Like,
Hmm.
how does this feel for me? What's the next step? And then I always like say I have pinned on my Instagram, and I also have this. I have a 7-day sugar challenge. That's a digital course that they can run on their own, and
Hmm.
just to really see how their body is feeling when they address something that's in our environment that people aren't necessarily always tackling right away,
Yeah.
because the sugar factor can be one of the main factors. And if you can do that, that's completely complementary. I just want you to understand how that might be affecting your system first.
Hmm.
So those are all the ways that people kind of get a hold of me. I always say the best thing to do is to talk to somebody. And I'd
Yeah.
rather you book a 30-minute call for me out of my time, where you don't have to worry about the confusing nature of what's out on Dr. Google and, all this.
Hey. Thank you so much, Jennifer. You have been, just like I said, you shared a master class in the few minutes that we have been able to come together. And once again, thank you so much for just being open. But also congratulations once again for being the victorious person and that you are and continue to be. You're an inspiration. Trust me. Trust me. God, I've just been so thrilled. Just listening, I've been so captivated. And to the point where it's like, wait a minute, there's more, there's more, there's more, that I want to talk to you about. And maybe, if you have some time, you can come back and we can explore some other conversations as it relates to, health and wellness and just being better, if that's possible.
I would love that. That'd be so much fun. I really appreciated the conversation, and I hope that anyone that's listening to this that is having a struggle knows that there's support out there for them. And whether it's from me or whether it's from you or another professional, just know that you don't have to go through it alone.
Awesome. There we have it. That's the mic drop. So listen, everybody, thank you so much. Like I said, I just fell in love with this woman today. I'll be honest with you. And she has just opened up her heart and her soul to share with us her journey and how we can be better as not only just individuals, but as a society at a whole. But once again, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us for this episode, and be on the lookout for the next episode of Living Your Best Life. Once again, everybody, it's Todd Cheeks signing off. And you guys have a wonderful weekend, wherever we are right now. And you guys take care. Take care. Bye-bye.